everyone, welcome back to Glue La La. If you're new here, my name's Jess. In my last video, I mentioned that I like to do paper crafting as well, and a lot of you said that you'd like to see paper crafting videos. So today I have 3 projects for you that are home decor projects, but they're going to help you use up a lot of that scrapbook paper that a lot of us all have stashed away. Alright everyone, let's get started. Before I get started with the projects, I wanted to show you the paper pack that I'm using for these projects. This is called Our House by Cartabella. And I love using paper kits like this because all the colors and patterns are so well coordinated, and they always come with a nice sticker sheet too, so that way you can kind of make your own little embellishments and everything. Okay, so for the first project, I'm using one of these little wooden houses that you can find at the Dollar Tree, and the back of it pops off pretty easy, so I just removed some of the excess paper. And the only thing I'm going to do to alter this house is to paint the very front edge with a little bit of white chalk paint, because I just didn't like how that brown color was showing. So next, I took the back that I popped off and I traced it onto one of the pieces of the scrapbook paper, and I used my paper trimmer just to cut around the edge of it. And then I was able to glue it onto the back of the house. Now, I didn't have to worry too much about getting all that design paper that was already off of the house off, because I knew I was going to cover it up. And I'm using my favorite paper crafting wet glue. It's called the Art Glitter Glue by Ranger. There's no glitter in it, but I really like it because it dries fast and there's minimal warping to the paper. Okay, so now I'm going to get started on making the little photo album that I'm going to put inside the house. So I'm cutting up some pieces of black cardstock, and I do have a cut list here for you, and I'm also going to leave the cut list in the description box below, so that way you don't have to try to take a screenshot or anything. You can just look in the description box for the cut list for all of these pieces. And this is just 65-pound weight cardstock. So for the first 2 pieces that are 8.5 by 4, I scored at 1/2 inch and then 4.5 inches. And then the third piece of 8.5 by 4, I just scored at 4 inches and 4.5 inches. Then the one piece that is 8 by 4, I just scored down the middle at 4. For the little closure band, I scored that at 1 inch and 1.5 inch. And I went ahead and folded that little closure band and the cover piece. I folded those and used my bone folder to make sure I got those edges nice and crisp. But for the other pieces, I'm not going to fold those yet. So I took some of this Scor-Tape, which is one of my favorite double-sided tapes, and I'll have that linked in the description box below, and it's 3/8 inch wide. So when I'm creating little hinge pieces that are 1/2 inch, it fits perfectly inside of those 1/2 inch pieces. So once I had my Scor-Tape laid down on the 2 8.5 by 4 inch pieces, I was able to adhere them. So I laid the one 8.5 by 4 inch piece on top of the other where the tape is, and I made sure that I got the piece right up to the score line, but I didn't cover up that score line because I wanted to be able to fold it easier. So once I had all 3 pieces taped together, then all I had to do was fold this like an accordion. So I folded one piece down, and then I folded the second in the opposite direction, and I just went back and forth until it formed like a fan fold or an accordion fold. You can see that here. Then to attach it to my cover, I took my accordion folded piece and I wanted to make sure that the top flap opened to the right. You can see that there. So I took my ATG gun, which is another form of double-sided tape, and I just used that to adhere that to the inside of the cover. And like I did with the other pieces, I made sure that I put that bottom piece down right up to that score line in the cover, but I didn't want to cover up that score line so that I can still fold the book shut. So there's our little mini book for inside the house. It's pretty basic, pretty easy, but it'll hold quite a few photos too. And then to make a little closure band here, I just took those pieces, and you can see I folded it around in kind of a U shape. And the inside of the small side of the band is going to get glued onto the back side of the album. So you can kind of place this wherever you want. I preferred to put it towards the bottom of the book, but you could also place it towards the middle too. And then you can see that'll be our closure. So now I'm going to get started on cutting the design paper for all of the photo mats inside of the album, and I do have a cut list for these pieces too. And you just want to go through your paper pads and pick out your favorite one and make sure that you cut that one for the cover, which is actually the same size as the inside of the pages. So this is a pretty easy cut list to follow. It's mostly just mats for inside of the book, and then there's a few smaller pieces to mat on the spine of the book and that little closure tab as well. When I'm adding design paper to the inside of mini albums, I always like to use my ATG gun. I think it just goes the quickest. And these pieces were cut to leave 1/8 of an inch of a border the whole way around. So you can see here, once I had my cover piece in place, there's a little bit of the black showing the whole way around. The great thing about using scrapbook paper for home decor pieces is that it can be customized to fit any kind of style. So obviously with this paper collection, it's a little bit more on, I'd say, the farmhouse side, or I know I've been seeing the term cottagecore thrown around in a lot of home decor blogs and everything. And I really think that this paper collection kind of fits that cottagecore theme. But if you're more into boho or more modern, you could find any kind of scrapbook paper to match what you like to decorate with. So this is pretty easy. You're just going to lay all of these square pieces inside and outside of that accordion piece that's on the inside of the book. Now the only thing on the book that you're not going to cover is the very back, because that's going to be glued down to the inside of the house. So once you have all the square mats down, then for these little pieces, I like to use wet glue because I think it's just a little bit easier. And I did go ahead and cut 2 small pieces that fit on the inside and the outside of the spine of the book, just to help finish it off a little bit more. And then 2 of the pieces are for the inside and the outside of that closure flap. So once I had all of the decorator paper in place on the mini album, for that flap to be able to stay in place, I'm just using a Velcro dot. Now you could use a mini magnet here as well. I just didn't have any on hand. So the Velcro dot is pretty easy to put in place because it is double-sided. So I peeled one side off, put it on the tab, and then closed the tab over to stick the other half of the Velcro in place. Then I took some of the stickers that I liked from the sticker sheet and I backed them up on the black cardstock, and I just cut around them so they had a little bit of a border too. And I was able to add those to the front of my cover just for a little bit of decoration. I didn't want anything that was too embellished because it is a working album. So with that flap, you want to make sure you don't put anything too delicate on there because it is going to be opened and closed. And you can see here how nice that accordion piece pulls out of the book, and you can fit a lot of little photos in here, or you could even put some quotes, anything that you like. Then to reassemble the house, I just hot glued the frame of the house back onto the back of the house there. And then I also used hot glue to glue the book in place. You could use double-sided tape, but I just felt like the hot glue would make it the sturdiest, and that because it is going to be opened and closed. And then to finish off the house, I just tied a little bow out of some jute and added it to the top of the house. And here's a finished look at our little house photo album. I think this turned out so cute, and I think it's cute because it gives someone a reason to interact with it. So if you have a guest over and you have this in your house somewhere on a bookshelf or on a tiered tray, you can say, oh, that's a photo album, and then they'll go over there and they'll get really intrigued by how there's a photo album inside the house. Okay, so here's the cut list for the second project. I really like quilted patterns, and I'm not a sewer, so I've never sewn a quilt in my life, but I really wanted to try my hand at quilting with paper. So you can see here that larger square, I'm just gonna turn that so that it's in a diamond shape, and then the next largest square is gonna go right in the center of it. And what's nice about the size of this square is you don't have to worry about trying to find the center because the corners will line up. So you can see here the corner of that square will hit the edge of each of the edges of the diamond shape. And then to get started with the quilting pattern, these smaller rectangle pieces I'm going to glue in place first. So the two corners, the pieces are going to go horizontal, and then in the opposite corners the pieces are going to go vertical. And once I had all of those pieces in place, then I took the smallest square and I kind of lined it up. I wanted to get a dry fit in there just to make sure that that square was going to fit properly before I added the next set of designer paper. So once I had all of those rectangle pieces in place, then I glued that square in. And what's nice about using the wood glue for something like, or not wood glue, the wet glue, is that you have a little bit of playtime. So if you lay a piece down and it isn't quite in the right spot, you can kind of wiggle it around until you get it lined up properly. It's not going to be an instant hold like the double-sided tape is. And you can see right here, I actually put that piece in the wrong spot. It should have been up against the other yellow piece, but I didn't notice it until I was editing. But it still turned out okay. You can't really tell that it's not the right pattern. Okay, so for the four corner pieces, these are all going to be assembled the same. So the square piece is going to be our base, and then the rectangle piece is going to go on the left, and then the other two accent pieces, when you glue these pieces down, you want to make sure that you're always keeping the patterns the same. So you can see here I have the yellow piece on the left, and then the navy blue in the bottom right, and the lighter pattern in the top right. And you want to make sure that you do all four of these the same. That way they're kind of uniform, and then when we place them on the canvas, we'll rotate them so they kind of look like a different pattern. To get started on assembling the quilted piece, I'm using one of these 11 by 14 flat canvases that you can find at the Dollar Tree. And this next step is pretty easy. So the main focal point of the piece is this diamond shape that we quilted together. And all I did was I laid it down and I just gave it a quick measure on each side just to make sure that it was centered. And I'm using my art glitter glue again. And I glued the four corners down into place. Because I wasn't sure how to keep it centered if I lifted it back up. So that's why when I measured it, I laid it down and then I just glued the corners in place. So then those little square pieces that we assembled, those are going to go in each of the four corners. And like I said, you're just going to rotate them one turn for each corner. So you can see in the top left corner, that yellow piece is on the left side, and then the top right corner, it's at the top, the bottom right corner, it's at the right side, and then the bottom left corner, it's on the bottom. And then to finish this off, I did take a little sticker from that sticker sheet and I put it right in the center because I thought that yellow teapot was so cute. So I really like how this turned out. I was excited because, like I said, I've always loved quilted patterns, but because I don't really sew, I've never tried it, but I've always wanted to try doing it with scrapbook paper. And I think probably I'm going to give this a quick coat of Mod Podge too, just to make sure that all of that paper is sealed down into place. And because this scrapbook paper is a little bit thicker, it's almost more on the cardstock side of paper. I think that the Mod Podge won't wrinkle it. Okay, so for the last project, I'm using one of these little wooden trays that you can find at the Dollar Tree. My Dollar Tree always seems to have a ton of these, and the handles on them vary slightly. So if you go to your Dollar Tree, you might find something similar, but the handle might be just a little bit different. I decided to give this a quick coat of the Antique Wax by Waverly, and I'm using a baby wipe to wipe it off because I didn't want it quite as dark as if you would just paint it on and leave it on. And the baby wipe always seems to get off enough of the excess that it lightens up the color a little bit. And I didn't bother putting any of the antique wax in the center of the inside of the tray because I knew I was going to be covering that up anyway, but I did go ahead and do the bottom too, just to finish it off a little bit more. So next, I'm taking some of the thinner jute twine that you can find at the Dollar Tree, and I decided to wrap it on each of the handles. So I just started by hot gluing in the center, and then I just kept wrapping and wrapping and wrapping until the handles were covered, and I did that on both sides. create a liner for the inside of the tray, I just took the tray and I traced it out onto the scrapbook paper, and I trimmed it out, and then I trimmed off little slivers of paper from the edges until it fit inside the tray. Then I used my art glitter glue again, and I just simply glued it into the bottom of the tray. And then to decorate it a little bit, I went back to that sticker sheet, and they had these little border stickers on there, and I thought that would look really cute running along the front of the tray. So I just, even though it is a sticker, I wanted to make sure it was really adhered down well, so I used a little bit of my glue and ran it along the edge, and then I trimmed off the excess. And then I found another really cute flower sticker, and again, it is a sticker, but I wanted to make sure that it was really in place, so I added a little bit of glue before I put it into the bottom of the tray. And that's how simple this DIY was. I really think it's cute. I think you could use it on a tiered tray again, or even a bookshelf, or if you wanted to waterproof it and cover it in Mod Podge, you could maybe use it in your kitchen to hold some of your like salt and pepper shakers or something like that. I just think it turned out really cute. Here's a final look at all the projects. I don't know if I can pick a favorite this week because I love paper crafting so much, but I am really excited how that quilted piece turned out. It's something I've always wanted to try, so I was really excited when it came together so easily. You'll have to let me know in the comments which one is your favorite. And I always have a lot of the tools that I use linked in the description box, so you'll have to check that out. And I included all of the paper crafting tools that I used this week. And I have the cut list in the description box below too if you want to try to recreate any of these projects. Alright everyone, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure you hit subscribe, hit the thumbs up, ring the bell, do all the things. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye!